now recognize myself for 5 minutes for questions. In September, Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines stated that while intelligence community will continue to monitor the terrorist threats in Afghanistan, that country is not currently at, quote, the top of the list for terrorist threats against the U.S. homeland. Instead, Director Haines said the intelligence community sees the greatest threats emerging from places like Yemen and Somalia, where al-Qaeda-affiliated groups continue to operate, and from Syria and Iraq, where ISIS maintains the ability to carry out attacks despite the defeat of its so-called caliphate in 2019. Ms. Harris, President Biden has stated that the United States will continue to counter terrorist threats in Afghanistan from an over-the-horizon basis. That term has been used multiple times to describe the new profile of our response. To the extent that you can describe it, can you please help explain for our subcommittee members what that means? What does that mean, and how is it working? How does it work, and how is it working with that effort? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. When we think about over the horizon, it isn't a static concept. It is an iterative approach tailored to the individual terrorist threat that we are looking at. It is a way to bring the department and the whole of government's full capabilities to bear against a terrorist problem and scale it based on the terrorist threat that we see. As we seek to set conditions in Afghanistan, for example, we are seeking to deepen our relationships in the region, work with our allies and partners who have a shared interest in preventing Afghanistan from becoming a terrorist safe haven, and continue to understand how ISIS-K and al-Qaeda are taking advantage of the new situation. As such, we will continue to iterate on how best to counter that threat, but we maintain the full suite of the department's capabilities to bring to bear as we learn more.
We've had the chance to, on this committee, look at some of the problem areas we've done. I've led multiple CODELs to Yemen, Somalia, and the one thing that strikes me in Africa and Mali as well, but the one thing that strikes me is the sheer size of the continent of Africa and the difficulty that presents. How does over the horizon work on the continent of Africa, with places like Mali and the Sahel and the Horn of Africa, given the fact that we're talking about huge spaces there, and most of the areas are ungoverned, so the infrastructure is very thin, and it would be difficult to maintain an over-the-horizon presence, I believe, in a timely fashion to address terrorist threats in those locations. Could you talk about the strategy there?
Absolutely. I think Africa provides a good example of a tailored approach. So it does not necessarily mean we do not have, U.S. forces stationed in Africa to be operating over the horizon. It means that we can use the full suite of capabilities that are available in Africa based on the terrorist threat we see. Some of it is a by, with, and through effort. We work with allies and partners when you think about our activities in the Sahel and what we are trying to pursue against JNIM and ISIS in West Africa. In Somalia, you've seen we've had both forces in Somalia and stationed nearby, but an approach that focuses on episodic engagement, building partner capacity, working with Somali partners to build increased counterterrorism capacity. Both, I think, involve elements that could be described as over the horizon, but are tailored to the nature of the terrorist threat.
Thank you. Mr. Landberg, does the State Department have a role in this?
Absolutely, sir. Thank you for the question. As my DoD colleague was saying, we look at this, especially in places like the Sahel and in East Africa, as a whole of government approach. And counterterrorism, that includes State Department, U.S. law enforcement, and DoD and other interagency allies. That is part of the equation, but the administration actually is looking at it as an approach that includes development assistance and governance and working with other countries. So one of the things I wanted to highlight is that we work very closely with our allies and through a number of international organizations. The De-ISIS coalition is something that we have been working on intensively. And in a meeting just a few days ago, they created in the De-ISIS coalition the Africa Focus Group, which is now going to help the 84 members of the De-ISIS coalition focus efforts, leverage all our capabilities on addressing terrorist threats in Africa. So this is like a whole of government, but also really an international community approach.
Thank you. Have we resourced this enough? I mean, this is a new and additional responsibility, I think, for State Department. Have we provided the resources necessary to undertake this change?
Thank you. I can speak for only the Counterterrorism Bureau. We have robust resources that we are working to implement effectively. That's our mission. We have the capability to do more, and so do our partners. We work to leverage DHS, DOJ, FBI to help build law enforcement capabilities wherever we're working. We have more capabilities, we could do more, but right now we're mostly focused on effective implementation of the funding we have.
Okay, thank you. My time has expired. I now recognize